Would you believe me if I told you that in the world's most populous Muslim-majority country, there is a silent revival of Hinduism taking place? A country where over 85% of the population follows Islam, where every public policy is designed around the interests of the Islamic majority. And yet, this very nation is now quietly turning back towards Sanatan Dharma. Sounds unbelievable? Then see for yourself. Om Shrim Nama. May all be happy. May all be complete. May all be fulfilled. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Today, thousands of Hindu temples are being built across the corners of Indonesia, even in remote regions like the island of Sulawesi. In a nation where Islam is the dominant faith, there is a growing wave of reconnection with ancient Hindu roots. Even members of Indonesia's royal family have embraced what they call their homecoming, a return to Sanatana Dharma. What's even more surprising is that some Muslim imams are not only adopting Hinduism themselves, but are also leading thousands of others in this spiritual journey. One such imam, deeply troubled by the lack of peace and answers within his former faith, turned to meditation. In one of his deepest meditative states, he heard an inner voice guiding him toward the Vedas and Sanatana Dharma. Since then, he has become a devout follower and a vocal proponent of Hinduism. He has now taken a vow that in the year 2024 alone, he will help at least 10,000 Muslims return to their ancestral roots in Hinduism. Islamic scholars in Indonesia are leaving Islam and embracing Hinduism. Formerly devout Muslim teachers, once known for their staunch religious stance, are now leading others in Ghar Wapsi, a return to Sanatana Dharma. In a surprising turn, even Indonesia's Muslim president openly regards Lord Krishna as his personal superhero. Yes, a superhero. And what kind of superpowers does he admire? Krishna's wisdom, his valor, and his divine charisma. Some see Lord Ganesha as their role model, and this admiration often leads to full conversion to Hinduism. People like Abdul and many others are embracing Hinduism daily in what was once thought impossible in a Muslim-majority nation. Muslim families across Indonesia are now naming their children with traditional Hindu names. Even Indonesia's armed forces, the Army, Navy, and Air Force have adopted their mottos from the Vishnu Purana. Rath Yatras are being organized in major cities, statues of Hindu deities are being constructed throughout the country. When foreign dignitaries visit, the Indonesian government is proudly gifting them Hindu-inspired artifacts. A whole generation is now being drawn back to its civilizational roots. Silently but surely. Indonesia is even building its new capital city based on Hindu cultural principles. So what triggered this wave of civilizational reawakening? Why is Hinduism spreading like wildfire in a country where over 210 million people identify as Muslim? Is Indonesia truly on the path to becoming a Hindu nation once again? Let's explore all these questions by the end of this video. Today, Indonesia stands as the world's most populous Muslim country. Out of its 240 million people, over 210 million follow Islam, and yet Hinduism is rising once again. Today, only about 5 million people in Indonesia, roughly 2% of the population, identify as Hindu. But if you dive into Indonesia's history, you'll realize it wasn't always this way. In the earliest times, the people of Indonesia practiced animism, a belief system that revolves around the worship of nature and spirits. Every island, every local tribe had its own unique style of animistic rituals. There was no organized religion at the time, just deep reverence for the elements of nature. But then came a turning point, the rise of Hinduism in Indonesia. The question is, how did Hinduism actually arrive here? There are two major theories about this. The first theory, the Indonesian legend. According to ancient Indonesian legends, the archipelago was once ruled by Rakshasas, demonic beings who devoured humans. In response to their cries for help, a noble prince named Aji Saka arrived from Jambudvipa, or ancient India, Bharat. He defeated the Rakshasas and liberated the people. Prince Aji Saka didn't just free the land, he also taught the locals Sanskrit and the Brahmi script, introducing them to Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism. To this day, Indonesians revere Aji Saka as a cultural hero. Just like India follows the Vikram Samvat or Panchang calendars, Indonesia still observes the Saka calendar, named after him. The second theory, Western historians' account. According to Western historians, Hinduism came to Indonesia around the 1st century CE as a result of intense Indochina trade. Indian traders and merchants frequently visited Indonesian ports. During their stay, they introduced Hindu philosophical ideas to the local tribes. This contact led to a unique blend of animism and Hinduism, giving rise to what can be called a hybrid form of Hinduism in the region. From here, the seeds of civilization were planted. The first known Hindu kingdom in Indonesia was the Kutai Kingdom, founded nearly 2,000 years ago. What's even more fascinating is that all the inscriptions from this era, all royal decrees and stone carvings, were written entirely in Sanskrit. Around the 5th century, the Tarumanagara Kingdom emerged in Indonesia, followed by the rise of the Srivijaya Empire in the 7th century. Then, in the 8th century, the Shailendra dynasty rose to power in Java and built the Borobudur Stupa, which today is known as the largest Buddhist temple in the world. By the 10th century, the Sanjaya dynasty came into prominence and constructed the grand Prambanan temple complex, which remains the largest Hindu temple complex in Indonesia to this day. This temple was dedicated to the Trimurti, the Holy Trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Later, in the 12th century, kingdoms like Kediri and Singasari rose in East Java. These kingdoms played a major role in further institutionalizing Hinduism. Literature, temple architecture, rituals, and cultural practices grew even stronger during their reigns. Eventually, the powerful Majapahit Empire emerged, the most politically successful and expansive Hindu empire in Indonesian history. At its peak, the Majapahit Empire ruled over much of Southeast Asia, including Java, Bali, Sumatra, the Philippines, and parts of Malaysia. During the era of the Majapahit Empire, Hinduism and Buddhism had reached their peak in Indonesia. This spiritual and cultural golden age wasn't achieved through force or war, but through wisdom, peace, and deep-rooted tradition. Temples like Prambanan weren't just architectural wonders. They were centers of festivals, learning, and devotion. Scholars from across the world would travel to Indonesia to learn the profound teachings of Sanatan Dharma. The region had truly entered its golden age. But then came a shift that would forever alter Indonesia's identity. Around the 13th century, the first Arab traders arrived in Indonesia. They established trading posts along the coastal ports of Sumatra, Java, and Kalimantan. But their true purpose went beyond trade. Gradually, these traders began influencing local rulers to adopt Islam. And yet, the most effective transformation didn't come from force. It came through Sufi mystics, who used soft influence rather than violence. One of the most notable examples of this was a Sufi named Sunan Kudus, born as Raden Jafar Shadiq. Instead of preaching through aggression, Sunan Kudus used subtle psychological and cultural methods to win over the hearts of the Hindu and Buddhist majority. For instance, on one occasion, he tied a cow outside his mosque, a highly unusual act in a place where cows were revered by Hindus. The cow's name was Kebo Gumarang. This created widespread curiosity among the locals. Why is there a cow tied in front of a mosque? When people gathered to ask him, Sunan Kudus explained that as a child, a cow had once saved his life. And ever since then, he had held cows in great respect. Through symbolic gestures like this, he gained the trust of the local population and slowly led many communities toward Islam. Not through force, but through emotional and cultural connection. Many people, moved by Sunan Kudus' display of affection toward the cow, began to sympathize with him. Once he had their attention, he began delivering philosophical and spiritual discourses. His calm demeanor and thoughtful words impressed the masses so deeply that some even began to believe he was an incarnation of Lord Vishnu. This emotional connection gave Sunan Kudus the perfect opening. Once people were spiritually attached to him, he would then slowly guide them toward conversion to Islam. It was a highly strategic approach, using the cow, sacred in Hinduism, as a symbolic bridge between the two faiths. Over time, the entire Kudus community, which was once predominantly Hindu and Buddhist, started converting to Islam under his influence. It is believed that Sunan Kudus built his mosque over the ruins of a Hindu temple, a symbolic assertion of religious transition. Yet even then, Hinduism had not been entirely erased from Indonesia, thanks to the resistance led by the mighty Majapahit Empire, which held back the Islamic expansion for decades. But that resistance finally broke in 1478, when the last Hindu king of Majapahit, King Brawijaya I, converted to Islam. This marked the fall of the Hindu stronghold. Seeing this, the royal priest of Majapahit, known as Shabdapala, was devastated. He cursed the king for abandoning Dharma and made a prophecy. "You have forsaken your Dharma, but I shall return, 500 years from now, when politics will be corrupt, disasters will plague the land, and people will have lost their spiritual path. Then I will return to lead them back to their roots." Following the fall of the Hindu Empire, mass conversions began. The new Muslim rulers declared war against non-Muslims, and many Hindus converted, some to survive, some to escape the jizya tax, and others to gain favor and patronage under Islamic rule. Temples, both Hindu and Buddhist, were abandoned. Even grand structures like Prambanan temple complex were left neglected. For many years, worship ceased, and the temples fell silent. As the Hindu kingdoms were collapsing and Islamic influence was rapidly spreading, many Shaivite priests and Buddhist monks were forced to migrate to other regions in order to survive and preserve their traditions. Around the same time, during the 16th century, Dutch colonial powers began arriving in the Southeast Asian islands. These colonial powers weren't interested in religion. Their primary goal was profit and control over the spice trade. By the early 1800s, nearly all of present-day Indonesia had become a Dutch colony. Once they secured control, the Dutch colonial administration began inviting Christian missionaries to operate in the region. However, the Dutch were very strategic in how they handled religion. They strictly banned missionary activity in Muslim-majority regions. Why? Because the Dutch feared that religious unrest among the Muslim population, which had now become the majority, could spark communal violence and threaten the stability of their colonial rule. To avoid this risk, they gave full freedom to missionaries only in Hindu, Buddhist, and animist communities, the minorities who had no power or political clout left. As a result, the Hindu population of Indonesia shrank dramatically, at one point dropping to just 2%. Over time, the Dutch, much like the British in India, began to exploit the country's resources and impose harsh policies and suffering upon the local population. This led to the rise of a freedom movement, just as it did in India. People from all religions and communities, Muslims, Hindus, Christians, Buddhists, united against the colonial oppressors. Finally, after years of struggle, the people of Indonesia declared independence from Dutch rule on August 17, 1945. Indonesia had now earned its freedom, but its religious and cultural identity had already undergone centuries of transformation. After Indonesia gained independence, Indonesian Hindus hoped that they would finally enjoy true religious freedom, and that there would be a chance to revive and reclaim their Hindu identity. But what actually happened was quite the opposite. Once Indonesia became a free nation, the biggest question facing the new government was, what should be the national identity of Indonesia? On one side, there was the Darul Islam group, which strongly advocated for an Islamic state governed by Sharia law. On the other side were groups who wanted a pluralistic, inclusive republic, based on the ancient Indonesian concept of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, unity and diversity. To bridge the divide between these two opposing visions, Indonesia's founding fathers proposed a national ideological framework called Pancasila, the 5 principles that would define the state's philosophy. But here's the catch. The very first principle of Pancasila was belief in the one and only God. This immediately excluded polytheistic belief systems like Hinduism, Buddhism, and animism from the official religious framework of the country. To make things worse, citizens were not allowed to live without declaring a religion, Everyone had to officially choose either Islam, Catholicism, Protestant Christianity, or a few other approved monotheistic faiths. This amounted to a state-sponsored conversion policy, one that indirectly pressured non-Muslims and non-Christians to abandon their traditional faiths. The message was clear: convert, or your religion won't be recognized and won't survive. And this policy worked to a large extent. Many animist tribal communities, under social and political pressure, abandoned their native beliefs and assimilated into the officially recognized faiths. In East Timor, back in 1970, only about 20% of the population were Catholics, while the majority still followed animism. But by 1990, nearly 95% had converted to Christianity. Similarly, Hindus across Indonesia were under intense pressure to accept Abrahamic religions like Islam and Christianity. During this period of political and religious coercion, many Hindus sought refuge and solidarity by migrating to Bali. By 1953, the situation had become so intense that the Balinese Hindus even declared their intention to secede from Indonesia. They feared the government was actively trying to convert them to Islam. However, being less than 2% of the national population, they lacked the political strength to openly oppose state policies. Despite this, the Hindu community refused to bow down. Rather than converting, they chose to convince the government that Hinduism was a valid religion deserving official recognition within Indonesia's national framework. In this effort, two prominent Indian figures played a crucial role: Narendra Dev Pandit Shastri, Sri Raghuvira. Working closely with Hindu leaders in Bali, they helped redefine Hinduism for Indonesia, maintaining the essence of Sanatan Dharma while providing proof that Hinduism is indeed a monotheistic religion, one that believes in a supreme being. Just like Christianity has the 10 Commandments and Islam has the 5 pillars, Indonesian Hinduism was defined by introducing the Pancashrada, meaning 5 fundamental beliefs common to every Hindu in Indonesia. These 5 core principles are: 1. Atman, the existence of a soul in every living being. 2. Karma phala, the law of cause and effect. Every action has consequences. 3. Reincarnation, the cycle of birth and rebirth. 4. Moksha, liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Essentially, these are the same 4 fundamental elements of Dharma that Indian Hindus also believe in. The 5th and final principle, however, was framed somewhat differently: one Almighty God. As you know, Hinduism traditionally embraces polytheism, with the supreme trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, goddesses like Parvati, Lakshmi, Durga, their avatars, and many other deities such as Ganesha, Surya, Varuna, Bhudevi, and Indra. But if you look deeper, Hindu philosophy also proposes a monotheistic concept: the idea of Brahman, the one ultimate reality or foundation that exists forever. This very concept was applied in Indonesia, where Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva were unified into a single entity, named Asintya, or Sangyang Widiwasa, meaning the inconceivable, beyond human comprehension. Moreover, just as Muslims pray 5 times a day, Hindu scholars in Indonesia created a structured daily practice called Puja Tri Sandhya, performed 3 times a day, in the morning, noon, and evening. The mantras chanted during these prayers sound similar to the Gayatri mantra, for example, Om Bhurbuva Swahaswami 2. By incorporating these structured beliefs and practices, Hinduism was successfully made to fit within Indonesia's official religious framework. As a result, the Indonesian government finally accepted Hinduism as a recognized religion. Following this recognition, temples began to receive official status, Hindu festivals were granted cultural significance, and the Hindu identity became an integral part of Indonesia's national culture. Today, Indonesian museums prominently feature Hindu artifacts. Currency notes bear the image of Lord Ganesha. The national airline is named Garuda, and Hindu festivals are celebrated as national holidays. Numerous places are named after Hindu deities, many new temples are being built, and cultural performances based on the Ramayana and Mahabharata have become widespread. Most importantly, Indonesian Muslims have fully assimilated Hindu culture, and this deep cultural integration is clearly visible today. This profound impact points to a Hindu resurgence in Indonesia. What is happening in Indonesia today is not just a cultural phenomenon, it is a civilizational awakening. This awakening was prophesied 500 years ago by Shabdapala, the royal priest of Majapahit. He said, after 500 years, when Mount Merapi erupts, and its lava and ashes fall southwest, that will be the time when people return to their roots. Interestingly, exactly 500 years later, around 1978, new Hindu temples began to be built in Java, with magnificent structures like the Blambangan Temple being completed. During this period, Mount Semeru also erupted. Then in 2004, the Indian Ocean tsunami claimed the lives of 220,000 Indonesians. In 2006, a devastating earthquake near Jakarta killed 5,782 people, injured 36,000, and left 1.5 million homeless. What is happening in Indonesia today is exactly what was predicted centuries ago. Despite Islam being the officially dominant religion, a silent but powerful Sanatan Hindu resurgence is underway. Many Indonesian Muslims are returning to Hinduism through a process called Shuddhivadini, which means purification or homecoming. This process involves purifying non-Hindus, renaming them, and formally initiating them into Hinduism with traditional temple rituals. In 1999, the National Indonesian Bureau of Statistics acknowledged that in the previous 20 years, about 100,000 Javanese Muslims had officially converted to Hinduism. While there is no latest official data available, the current rate of conversions clearly suggests that this number has grown substantially. Leading this Hindu revival movement is Sumawati Sukarno, the daughter of Indonesia's founding father, Sukarno. She herself converted back from Islam to Hinduism, saying that she didn't change her religion, but rather recognized and returned to her roots. Following her example, many other stories have emerged where Muslim imams have left Islam to embrace Hinduism, as they found deep peace through meditation and Hindu scriptures. One such imam couldn't solve the problems faced by his people and felt no peace until he was guided to explore the Vedas and Hinduism. Through meditation in the serene mountains, he experienced profound tranquility and converted to Hinduism. Today, he is a strong follower and active propagator of Hindu teachings, openly converting others. Alone, he has converted over 10,000 Muslims back to Hinduism, essentially helping them return to their ancestral faith. In 2024, Vegas has taken a vow to convert at least 10,000 Muslims to Hinduism. Today, many Muslim youths are embracing Hinduism and returning home, even in Banten region, which is known as a stronghold of Islamists. People there are increasingly adopting Hinduism. In fact, in modern Indonesia, there is a kind of reverse love jihad happening, where Muslim boys and girls are adopting Hinduism for their Hindu partners. Muslim women are converting to Hinduism to marry their Hindu partners. For example, a hijabi Muslim girl from East Java converted to Hinduism through the Shuddhivadini process. TikTok star Angga Santiana has also adopted Hinduism. Her before and after photos went viral, showing the transformation. Today, many hijab-wearing girls are embracing Hinduism with their family's consent. It's not just girls, boys are also converting to Hinduism for their partners. In South Sulawesi, a Muslim boy named Maksar adopted Hinduism for his Hindu partner. In fact, even Muslim couples are converting to Hinduism together. Agamala, today in Indonesia, the peak of Hindu revivalism is steadily rising. This movement is not just among Muslims, but also Christians, Buddhists, and animists like Papa Ibo. They are all adopting Hinduism. This revival is being actively pushed at the grassroots level by an organization called Majapahit Nusantara. This group trains Japanese youth so that they can spread the religion. Along with this, the organization also provides economic support to Hindus, helping newly converted Hindus sustain themselves. Currently, many temples in Indonesia offer free education and healthcare facilities, which is influencing even non-Hindus positively toward temples. Temples are being built across every corner of Indonesia to revive Hinduism in the Aceh Palologo region. Recently, a movement called 1000 Kandi Osanara was launched. which is a grassroots temple revival campaign. Javanese Hindus have set a goal to build 1,000 new Hindu temples throughout the archipelago area. Not only Hindus, but even Indonesian Muslims who have adopted Hinduism have donated their land so that pure Javanese-style candi temples can be constructed. Even in remote islands like Sulawesi, new Hindu temples are being built. In modern cities like Jakarta, statues of Garuda Vishnu, Krishna Arjuna's chariot, and murals depicting Mahabharata morals are being installed. Hindu Rath Yatras are being conducted with great enthusiasm. Classical Hindu dances are performed, and large numbers of people are coming to watch Ramayana performances. The Prambanan temple, which was abandoned years ago, has started worship again. Seeing all this, it seems that Indonesia is reclaiming its identity, and that too without any forced conversions. People in Indonesia today are voluntarily reconnecting with their roots. While the whole world struggles with its identity crisis, Indonesia is silently teaching us that staying connected with one's roots is not an obstacle to progress, but a symbol of strength and progress itself. So, what do you think about this? Please share your thoughts in the comment box, like, and share the video.